Hi again. You probably remember last week we visited Tom as he put eggs into his tank, and today we're going to look and see what happened to those eggs. Hopefully you've all made predictions on what they're going to look like, and in just a minute we'll see if that actually came true. Following that, after looking at Tom's artificial environment, once again we're going to go out to the creek with Giselle to see what real fish habitat looks like, and we'll be answering questions sent in by students like you. Now, you all have a habitat and you all hopefully have a home. And you do a lot of work to help maintain this home, helping your parents give you a good place to live. One of the things we're going to be looking at today are things we can be doing to make sure that fish also have a good home. So, let's get started. Hey Tom, are you ready for us?
I'm ready for you, Ethan, and thanks again for the introduction. Welcome to Tank Time with Tom. We're here at episode 3 in front of the tank, and as you remember last week we went and picked up the eggs at the Sonoma County Water Agency during a horrendous storm. It was absolutely wonderful. And Carl was there from Russian River Fly Fishers helping to distribute the eggs to teachers, and I was lucky enough to be part of that. So let's take a close look inside the tank in a minute and see how our eggs are doing. But I want to talk a little bit about fish habitat and what it takes to keep the tank in the most optimal conditions to help raise these eggs into little steelhead fry. So let's take the cover off the tank and see what's going on.
All right, here we are in front of the tank. And as you can see here, I've removed the styrofoam cover, and we've got covers on the top, sides, bottom, back. And that helps to do a couple things. It helps to insulate the tank from temperature fluctuations and keep it cool. And it also keeps light out. So we're going to talk a little bit about how those things affect the habitat. But take a look in the back. We're at about 57 degrees. In the way back, you can see the thermometer. And take a look at this. I'm going to hold it here and take a look at our eggs. You might actually see some of them move. But they look good. I've seen some move during the last week. There's a couple in motion right there. So let's take a close look at those. There's some movement. It's amazing when you just sit still and watch. So what have we done here to provide a healthy habitat for these steelhead eggs? I mentioned the covers, those foam covers that we have. We can also dim the lights in the room to help keep it dark so that there's not excessive light. Keep the lights off at night. And we can turn down our thermostat. And luckily, this room is pretty cool. So it's been running a little on the cool side. And as you can see here, it was a little bit warmer. I turned the heat up to keep myself a little bit warm. But temperatures varying between, I've seen it as low as 49 and as high as 61, which is actually quite a range of temperature. And ideally, we'd like to be right in the middle, right in about the 55 degree range. But these seem to be doing really, really well. Okay, we also want to make sure that the water is running clean and clear, which it is. And you can see in the back, if you can look up at the top, you can see the water coming in from the filter and the chiller that we have, which I showed you last week is right here. So there's fresh water coming in, and it gets sucked up from the tube that's in the back in that left-hand corner. Okay, let's go back to the eggs. This is really exciting. Okay, but we continue to check these eggs a few times a day, and I just want to make sure everything's okay. The water's clear, the temperature is fairly stable. So those are important things in the habitat that we want to make sure are stable so these fish can, so these eggs can thrive, okay? And these are just a few things that we can do to take care of the habitats to help these eggs hatch safely? Well, the water in our tank had to come from somewhere, right? It certainly did. So let's head over to the creek and find out what Giselle is up to. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be back on the creek today. Last week, we were looking for reds. Reds are nests for steelhead eggs. It's so cool to see the alevin in Tom's tank. If we tried looking for alevin right now in the creek, it'd be really hard to find. This is because they're hiding inside the gravel. Even though we can't see them, it's still really important that we protect them. There are many things we can do to protect their habitat in the wild. In fact, there's a lot we can do right near our homes. Has anyone ever seen one of these before? This is called a storm drain. When it rains, the water goes into a storm drain. This water flows into a waterway, often a creek like this one. That means if things like litter, soap, and pet waste go down the storm drain, they could end up here. What flows up here ends up here. It's our job to keep these wild habitats healthy. Picking up trash at home is a great way to keep litter out of the creek. Oh no, I see some litter right now. Let's go pick it up. Your actions make a big difference in protecting fish and their habitat. Let's hand it over to Shelley for Ask a Biologist.
Oh, hey, thanks Giselle. Hi everyone. It's time for Ask a Biologist. We have Ryan and Derek back with us today and lots of really great questions. This question is for Ryan and it's from Soma at Sedgwick Elementary. Soma asks, do we need to keep everything the same in the tank as it is out in the wild?
Hi Soma, thank you for your question. While it would be nice to simulate the wild habitat of steelhead in the tank, it is not necessary. In fact, a reason why we rear steelhead under artificial conditions at the hatchery is to reduce some of the potential sources of mortality in the wild. The most important factors for successful hatching of steelhead eggs in your tank is to maintain good water quality and a consistent optimal temperature.
This question is for Derek, and it comes to us from Harshal at Sedgwick Elementary. Harshal asks, if my tank is really clean, and I put the steelhead or rainbow trout into a really clean stream, then will they survive if suddenly the stream becomes really dirty? What will happen, Derek?
Thanks for the great question, Harshal. Your fish should be strong enough to survive a little turbid water after a rainstorm. They might not be able to see their food as well for a day, but they should be okay. If the dirty water persists or is especially murky, they could go hungry or worse, have their gills clogged up with superfine silt. That is why farmers and construction workers need to prevent bare soils from washing off their fields and into creeks. Cities use street sweepers to keep their streets clean and prevent pollution from washing down storm drains. Remember, only rain down the drain.
Addison from Arroyo Seco wants to know, how do mom steelhead or rainbow trout protect their eggs? Derek?
Hi, Addison. Once the female trout lays her eggs and finishes the red by covering them over with gravel, she is done. She won't be investing any more energy into protecting the eggs. The red acts like a shield and protects the eggs from predators and swift currents while they incubate.
Mateo from Arroyo Seco asks, how are they born? Tell us about it, Derek.
Hi, Mateo. Thanks for the question. Steelhead and trout aren't born, but instead they hatch from eggs. Animals that lay eggs are known as oviparous. Humans and nearly all mammals give birth to live young and are called viviparous. A viviparous California freshwater native, the tule perch, is just one example of a fish that bears live young. Now, back to your question. Trout or steelhead eggs are laid in the red where they are protected in the gravel. Once the egg has matured, the small alevin begins to break out of the egg and remain sheltered in the interstitial spaces between the gravel. Once the alevin get a little stronger, they swim up out of the gravels.
That was great. I told you last week I love learning about trout, and I've been studying trout for years and years, but I still learn something new every week, and I hope you do too. Giselle, I really want to thank you for not only showing us the creek, but also you found another piece of garbage out there, and what did you do? You could have walked by it, but you did the responsible thing and you picked it up and put it into the right container. Now, you may remember that last week I showed you this jar, and for every good deed or good idea we get from a student like you or a group of students, we put a rock in the jar and we're trying to fill the jar up. So Giselle, put a rock in the jar for you. I also received an email from Sequoia Elementary in Sacramento. Rhiannon Andrew White is the teacher, and here's what her students are going to be doing this week and for a while to come to help fish habitat. Number one, they're going to stop dropping things into the street and try and keep oil and other things from dripping off their parents' cars so that it doesn't end up down the storm drain or in the creek. They're going to pick up after themselves every time they're out on the schoolyard or in nature. They're going to put garbage into the right container, whether it be compost or recycle or landfill. They're going to make sure that they follow fishing regulations when they're out on the water, taking only the right number of fish, the right fish, and fishing in the proper way. They're not going to throw food into the river because they know as much fun as it is, it's not what fish need to survive. It pollutes the water. And they're going to work to reduce their use of single-use containers like straws, cups, papers, and napkins, and use reusable materials. So for every student in that class at Sequoia Elementary in Sacramento, a rock in the jar. Take your ideas, either as an individual or as a class, and send them in along with your questions for our biologists, and we'll add your rocks to the jar. Now, I have one more challenge for you, and that is I'm going to go out this week every day and pick up 5 pieces of garbage, at least 5, maybe more, depends. I'd like you to go out and do the same at least one time, maybe 7 times between now and next week, and then take a photo of your 5 pieces of garbage and send it in. I'd love to see all that great stuff. Now, last week we saw eggs go into the tank. This week we saw the hatched fish. I wonder what they're going to look like next week. One of your jobs, besides the garbage, besides the good ideas, is to predict what we'll see in the tank next week.